Okay, this is going to be a tutorial on how to build a inexpensive lightsaber from just items that you can find around the house, plus a couple of 3D printed items for the various end parts. But most of this you can probably find at home or at Home Depot for relatively inexpensive. The only parts that really you need to either be able to print, which you can do either at 3dhubs.com if you don't have a 3D printer, or you can go to your local library. A lot of times local libraries have 3D printers nowadays, unless you print out things. Also, you can look up your local makerspace or one of the other external printing services out there on the internet. First of all, a couple of things you'll need. The first item you're going to need is going to be a section of 3/4 inch PVC tubing. This you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards. The next item you will need is going to be a Husky 60 lumen LED aluminum light pen with clip. The next item you should be able to find for free. I found mine, as you can see, on the road. A bit of clear plastic that you can use to cover the lens to give you the green color for your lightsaber. I just went ahead and printed the items for the lightsaber. What I've already done before I started the video was I've cleaned up all the supports, sanded everything, scraped everything with an X-Acto knife or with a straight blade, used emery boards to get into the tight cracks here, as well as some needle files that I had already. Worst case scenario, just take your time, use your X-Acto knife blade to clean out the supports and everything like that, and use these cheap emery boards that you can get. I did a preliminary fit to make sure that the guard fit over this, and then I also, like I said, I sanded everything. Then I have a cup of acetone that I use for various things, from cleaning brushes to making my ABS slurry to actually finishing out some of these prints. If there's any large gaps in a print, then I use either super glue, which again you should have around the house, to put it back together, or I use my ABS slurry. Now all this is some ABS parts from the support. I typically only print in ABS. Now you can do a similar sort of thing with building this out of PLA. However, you can't use the acetone to do the smoothing. There's going to be a lot more sanding, and I typically don't like printing in PLA simply because it's just, there's not a lot of options when it comes to smoothing or bonding or anything like that. You typically can only use super glue, and then you have to do a lot of sanding, which means you weaken your piece, in my opinion. But you can put glazing putty on it to smooth it out as well. But back to what I'm doing with these is, well, these don't need it, but typically if there's a big crack, I'll use this ABS slurry. You basically take acetone and ABS and you put it into just an old jar. You fill it up partially, and then you just cram as much ABS in there as you possibly can, and you keep on cramming it in there until it has about the consistence of PVA glue, Elmer's glue. Okay, now we're going to take some flat black acrylic spray paint, and we're going to prime these pieces, as you can see here, with the flat black acrylic. So we're just going to coat this really good, including the lightsaber body part, so that everything is nice and black. Okay, so a day has passed. I have, as you see, primed everything with black spray paint and let it dry overnight. So everything is ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to take this up into my inside workshop. and start working on painting it and everything else. I've got some shimmering silver from either Michael's, Joann's, or Walmart. You can usually find these. These are about 99 cents a piece, and they last forever unless you use a lot, especially when you're dry brushing metal. The next one that I'm going to use is going to be the metallic gunmetal gray. This is a folk art. Again, you can find this at Michael's, Joann's, or Hobby Lobby even, or even Walmart. Just cheapo paints. They're 99 cents a piece, but they work really well, especially when you're painting miniatures and that sort of stuff. They're really good at that. That's just the same. So I'll use that for right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the darker color first, and just squirt some out here on my little palette. This is just a piece of marble tile that I used for my palette. Take a crappy old brush. Let me see if I got a bigger one. Actually, I'm going to take this brush here. These can be gotten again at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's, relatively cheap for a pack of them. $4 or $5. Don't spend a lot when you do this, especially for dry brushing, or I don't. The fine brushes that I use for fine details on my miniatures, I do go expensive on those, but when you're doing crappy stuff like washes and dry brushing and that sort of stuff, don't spend the extra money. It's not worth it, and this will last you good enough. So you just take a little bit of this paint, spread it out, load up your brush, and then you wipe it off so most of it's gone, and then you just take the brush and run over the item that you're working on. Okay? So you want to get a lot of that paint out, so you're just kind of highlighting it. Okay? Leave that black still on there, because that's all part of the shading and everything, and that'll be your final look. Now there's another way that I do this when I do my Nerf guns for steampunk, which is I call it blessing the part, or blessing the gun. And what I will do is I will take flat black like I did here. Well, this is kind of a matte finish, not really a flat black, but a matte finish black, and paint the item or the thing that I'm wanting to make metal. And then I will stand back with a rattle can of silver paint, and like I said, I call it blessing the item, and just spray it in the air over the item. And what will happen is, because of the way spray paint works, or spray cans work, it's, instead of a constant stream, it shoots out little blobs. So those little blobs will float down and land on the item to create a kind of a metallic sheen on the item as well. But I like doing this as well. To me, all of this is kind of relaxing. So just like I said, just kind of liberally kind of brush this over that. So if you see under the light, it has that kind of metallic sheen to it. And we're going to do the same thing on the inside of this with the darker gray, gunmetal gray silver. So just continue on doing that until it looks like a good solid piece of metal, a dark piece of metal, because we're going to go across it with the highlights of the lighter silver. As you see, the brush kind of gets ratty. And as you're doing this, you're spreading out the paint on your palette. God, I sound like Bob Ross, don't I? You're spreading the paint out. We're going to draw some happy little trees here, but you're spreading out the paint on the palette so it gets thinner and thinner, so you don't have to wipe it off as much unless you hit the big blob of paint that you're using. So you just sit here, like I said, and kind of rub it across. You don't want to cover everything so it's solid silver. You want to just kind of let the black show through, let the grain show through. So in the end, you're going to end up with something like this, where it comes out with kind of a metallic sheen. So I finished all three, as you can see with the base dry brush. Here's that. Here's the switch, or the button top part, and then the shroud. So we've got these to the base metallic color. Now we're going to take some of this shimmering silver that we mentioned earlier, and again dump it out. And we're going to dry brush with this, though it's a little wet, so I'm not sure exactly why my silver did this, but we'll see how we get. Again, I just dumped it on top of the other gray silver, and we're now going to take it. Let me tilt the camera down a little bit. And again, we're just going to kind of go over, kind of highlight the high points. Okay, to give a little sheen to it. If you look, there's some interesting effects, especially with this 3D plastic, especially when it's on the bed, that you can look like it's been damaged and that sort of stuff. Okay, so we're back. I painted this, and while this is drying, what I'm going to do is, while the top was wet a little bit, I went to my green piece of plastic, as you see here, and I basically use the wet paint to draw the circle that I'm going to use to put inside of the lens, to give me at least a rough estimate on how big this is going to be. And I'm going to take a pair of scissors and just cut around. Doesn't have to be spot on, because there is a little bit of lip in my model here, so just as long as it's inside where you can get it in to glue it down. And I'm cutting out this circle. Now I'm sure that there are things out there like jewels and glass jewels, or even already pre-cut plastic out there that you can buy to do this. But again, I'm trying to keep this as inexpensive as possible for people, and as simple for people as possible can. So I've cut this out. Now when this dries, I'm going to take some super glue and glue this into the part here, so that the lens is in there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some highlighting with some colors. Now you're wondering why I'm doing bright colors on some of this, and I'll tell you why. I'm also doing some black here. I got to do some touch-ups a little bit. Because what I'm going to do after I've done painting is I've got to weather this. So when I weather something, it tends to do with, especially with washes, even though we've already got the black in there, I'm going to do a black wash on it, and then I'm also going to do some weathering with it, which is kind of going to make this look like it's well used and dirtied and that sort of stuff. So, and all I'm doing here is just cleaning up these edges. Nobody's going to notice it except for me, typically, but I'm just OCD, I guess, like that. And now I'm going to take my yellow. I'm also going to take some gold. I'm going to take a little drop. Doesn't require a lot. Like I said, these last for a long time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and just kind of fiddle with it and think about what I want it to look like. Now, what I can do is I can take along this edge right here and just highlight it with the yellow. Just give it kind of an interesting stripe. Again, you don't have to, unless you're making screen accurate props or screen accurate items for your cosplay. Have fun with it. Just kind of do what makes you feel good. That's also kind of the philosophy when you build your lightsaber in the Star Wars universe is you're building it for yourself. The lightsaber tells you what it wants to be when it grows up. So kind of take that philosophy into the real world and just kind of paint, you know. Just take your time. Nothing, you don't need to rush. Unless you're at a con and it's the next morning, then you probably do need to rush. But which I don't think anybody watching this or anybody that will watch this hasn't ever done that at the last minute, done, you know, the con 24-hour push to get your costume done, or your cosplay done, excuse me. I know I have. I know I've also gotten to cons before, and it something has gone wrong in the transportation of your costume, and you're having to do emergency repairs. I'm going to let that dry. Now, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a yellow stripe here as well, along this. Again, it's just what I think it needs to be for me. Your mileage may vary. Now, you don't need to be too careful with this because you can come in and wipe it away. Like that. And see, it just kind of flows in. You've taken away the excess by using your finger to do that. And you just kind of paint along. Da, 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 da. Again, using your fingers to clean up the oversplash. And if you take out a little bit of the stuff inside, don't worry about it. You can always go back over it if you really want it to be in there. Or you can just say it's wore off, because you're supposed to make these look like they've been to hell and back. I mean, you're not a new Jedi. Yellow line within that groove. Okay. Now, what I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the gold. And why am I doing gold instead of something like a brass on this? Well, again, it has to do with you weathering these items when you're done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mix two golds together. I've got royal gold, and then I've got metallic Inca gold. Again, from Folk Art. Nothing expensive here, guys. So kind of put a little bit of dollop of both of them on there, and then kind of mix them together. And what this does is gives me kind of an in-between gold between the two. Gives me the sheen of the Inca gold and the richness of the, listen to me like I know what I'm talking about here, the richness of the royal gold. So I'm not going to use too much of this, but what I'm going to do, or where I want to use it, is on this bottom piece here. And don't worry that your stuff is shining through, because you're probably going to have to do a couple of coats of this paint. That is the only drawback of these acrylic paints that you pay the price for, is that typically you have to kind of lay them on thick, or do a couple of coats, which is not really a problem. And in some cases you don't really care that it's got that you have to put it on, or the final look. It just, again, it depends on what you want it to look like and how dirty you want it to look. Just kind of go with what it tells you it wants to be. Again, paint happy little trees. Channeling my inner Bob Ross here. So just paint along. Okay. Okay, so this is what it ends up looking like. It's kind of blotchy, and again, it's all going to kind of come out in the wash, especially when you do the weathering. Now the next step, while these are drying and doing their things, made sure that this switch that I'm going to use to power the flashlight fits, which it should, because like I said, I did the measurements and made sure that it would fit in there. I've got to do some cleanup and that sort of stuff. So I'm setting that to the side. And I started working on the flashlight a little bit. So did not want to kind of bore you while I try to figure out what was doing. The little switch, the plastic cover, just comes off. But what I ended up doing instead was, here's the switch, is I took my Dremel and I had taken the end off where the batteries go, and I cut it, and inside there's two parts to it. There is the switch, or the spring that attaches to the battery, and then there is a metal part that goes down the core, as you see here, and that attaches to the outside, and the outside has a sleeve that goes all the way down, and that's how the circuit completes from the battery between the two. And I tested that out and made sure that the connection between this and that center ring, as you see there, focus, is completes the circuit and turns the battery on. So the next step, now that I've removed that top, is to solder a wire to this and to that inner ring so that I can complete the circuit with a switch. Okay, so what I've had to do is a couple of things. The inside of this actually screws out, that holds the spring to connect to the batteries, and then I've taken and done a slot along the side that goes into the flashlight, because I found out that it's not this inner, there's not an inner sleeve, it's this whole flashlight here. And what keeps you from getting a little shock, if any shock, not that you would notice, 3 volts, is the anodized covering on the outside of the flashlight. So what I'm going to do is solder this on and then put it back together and see if I can get this switch to work. Okay, after a little trial and error, what I ended up doing was I cut a hole in the side of the little screw area here on top, soldered the brown wire onto that side, then soldered the red wire onto the spring. So now if you connect the two, ta-da, it works. So now I should be able to, after I put some hot glue down in this area, be able to say the flashlight is finished with its modifications. So I'll leave that doing its thing. So now I'm going to take, and if I had some hot glue in here, I would just squirt it in, but since I don't, I need to add get one out of my handy dandy glue drawer and put it into my glue gun, and then just kind of squirt this around. Now, some of you are probably going, well, how are you going to change the screwdriver? Or not the screwdriver. Screwdriver. How am I going to change the... And I did a wonderful glue job here. I just want y'all to know. How am I going to change the batteries? Well, that's pretty easy, because both ends of the flashlight unscrew. So now with this mod, I can still get in when the batteries die down to change out the batteries. Not that the batteries are actually going to be wore down that much, but still need to be able to access it. So I just fill this area up with hot glue. Put a little more in here, just to be on the safe side. Make sure that these wires do not go anywhere. So now we have the main part of the lightsaber is actually finished now, which is the lighting. Okay, what I'm going to do I think, is I'm going to take some glue and just squirt it in here, just to hold this in place. And it's going nowhere. My little filter, my green filter. So what I'm going to do, if I can find it on this messy desk, is take and run a bead of super glue around the inside lip, as you see, of this lightsaber. And I think that's about had it. And take the green film that I'm using for my filter and just press it down inside there. Just to make sure that it's sealed around all edges, that none of the white light can get out. So that's really all you do there. You let that dry. Let's see if I got any more super glue in here. I'm not going to use the Gorilla Glue because at least that particular formula I have balloons up into foam. So now I'm going to glue the shield on. A little bit of super glue. Cap back on that. And this just slips on. And I rotate it a little bit. Until it gets to the point where I want it. Okay. And now that's done. Okay. Now, also, I forgot to mention what I did was I took some foam, just a small scrap I had, and put around the flashlight so that I can make sure that it doesn't rattle inside the can, so to speak. And now I'm going to take this and run it up the side here, and take a little bit so it doesn't bunch of electrical tape. If I can find my okay. And I'm just going to take this electrical tape. It's not for isolating or anything like that. It's just for making sure that this kind of stays in place when you put it on or put it in the tube. Okay. And twist this up a little bit here. I think I'll put a little bit of tape on that too to hold it together. Just to keep it nice and tidy. Slide this into the tube, like so, and it's starting to look like a lightsaber. Okay, so now that everything has dried in the base of the lightsaber, we're ready to start putting the leather on the handle. And then doing some of the finish work. As you see, the power works and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I've got some leftover fake leather, as you see here. This is just pleather. Again, you can get this sort of stuff from, you can either go buy like a yard or half a yard or what have you from Joann's, or you can use old pocketbooks, or even suede mini skirts. You can find that sometimes in thrift stores for, you know, $2 or $3. Again, don't spend a lot, and that's the kind of gist of what we're doing here. So I'm going to cut about 1 inch width for the wrapping of the leather. Here. Okay, so right now you're going to have to slant this a little bit because you're going to wrap it around the handle here. So what I do is I come in, start at one corner, and just slant it a little bit and cut it off just like that. Now I'm going to lay this down flat, get rid of my cutting board, and then I'm going to take just some regular contact cement. For those that don't know how contact cement works, is you put it on the item and you let it dry. It's not like regular glue. It's kind of weird. But you put the contact cement on and you let it dry out, and then you put the contact cement on the other area that you want to glue, let it dry out too, and then you put them together and it miraculously sticks. So you want to coat this with your contact cement. You just apply it on there, just like so. Just run it on here, and it's already starting to dry, as you see. So just make sure that you cover all the areas really good, so that everything has a place to stick to. Okay, now you can buy this in a bigger can, and then you just buy a regular old chip brush to apply it with, and make sure that that's really the only thing you'll use that for going forward. Is just use it for your glue. You don't want to reuse it for anything else. Now you do the same thing for the handle. Okay, so our time has elapsed and I've let this dry. So now we're going to take the leather and we're going to lay this down and we're going to wrap it, making sure that there's good contact between the faux leather and the surface that I've on the lightsaber, just like this. Now you're going to get to a point, which I think I just got to, where I stretched it or I made it too long, which is always good. You can always make it too long. It's easier to cut it down than it is to make it longer. And what I'm doing, after I turn it back off, is I'm giving it a little bit of a slant here. Okay, and I'm just stretching it and putting it into place. And cutting off this little excess here. Get back a little bit. Okay. I don't know. It's now got a leather wrapped handle. I think I want to bulk it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to cut another strip, put some more glue, leave this on, put another layer on, I think is what I'm going to end up doing with this. Just to bulk it up a little more. Okay, so I've done the wrap. I wrapped it with a broad faux leather 4 times to get the right thickness that I wanted, and then I took some simple braided leather that you can buy at Walmart for $1, and did a pattern on the hilt, as you can see right here. I also took a black paint pen because the red button was just a little too much. It was too bright. So what I did was I painted the button black. Still works. And with that, you now have an inexpensive lightsaber. Have a nice day, and get out there and make something.